Your ancestors weren't just surviving in the wilderness. They were performing rituals so bizarre, so disturbing, that modern humans would consider them acts of pure madness. From drinking blood out of human skulls to burying their children alive, these ancient practices reveal a side of humanity that we've completely forgotten. And the most unsettling part, these weren't isolated incidents by savage tribes. They were sophisticated ceremonies practiced by our direct ancestors for thousands of years. We're talking about rituals spanning from 4000 BCE to just 500 years ago, across every continent where humans lived. From the frozen caves of Neanderthal Europe to the tropical rainforests of Papua New Guinea, from the deserts of ancient Egypt to the mountains of Tibet. These were primitive mistakes. They were deliberate, complex ceremonies that defined entire civilizations. And understanding them reveals just how radically different the human mind operated before modern society sanitized our instincts. Picture this. You're a warrior in ancient Germania around Qing CE. You've just defeated your enemy in battle, and now comes the most important part. You carefully remove their skull, clean it meticulously, and craft it into a drinking cup. Not for decoration, but for daily use. Archaeological evidence from bog bodies shows that Germanic tribes didn't just do this occasionally. They made skull caps from family members, enemies, and even their own children. The Scythians took this even further. They would line skull cups with gold and use them during sacred ceremonies, believing that drinking from an enemy's skull transferred their strength and courage. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. They also made skull cups from their own relatives as a sign of respect and to keep their spirits close. Imagine toasting at your dinner table with your grandfather's skull. In ancient Celtic culture, around 500 BCE, there was a practice so horrifying that even the Romans, who threw people to lions for entertainment, were shocked by it. When a Celtic chieftain died, his entire household would be buried alive with him. Not just servants, but wives, children, horses, and dogs. Archaeologists have uncovered burial sites in Ireland and Scotland where they found the remains of up to 40 people, all showing signs of being buried while still breathing. The positioning of the skeletons tells the story. Many have their hands covering their faces, others are curled in fetal positions. Carbon dating shows they survived for hours underground before suffocating. The Celts believed this was the ultimate honor, to serve their leader in the afterlife. But the numbers are staggering. Across Celtic Europe, over 10,000 people were buried alive in these rituals. Over just 3 centuries, in the mountains of ancient Tibet, Buddhist monks practiced a ritual called tumu, but not the peaceful meditation you might think. This was a trial by fire that killed 60% of monks would strip naked in temperatures reaching 40 Celsius, cover themselves in wet sheets, and attempt to dry them using only their body heat generated through meditation. If they succeeded, they were considered enlightened. If they failed, they froze to death. But here's the twist. They did this not just once, but repeatedly throughout the night. The goal was to dry multiple wet sheets until dawn. Marco Polo witnessed this ritual in 1775 and wrote that he saw monks dry over 20 sheets each, their bodies steaming in the freezing air. Modern science has confirmed that advanced practitioners can raise their body temperature by up to 10 degrees through this technique. But for ancient monks, it was literally a matter of life or death. In Aboriginal Australian culture, they resisted a form of psychological warfare so powerful that it could kill without any physical contact. The bony pointing ritual involved a shaman creating a special bone tool, typically from a kangaroo or emu, and pointing it at their target, while chanting specific curses. The victim, upon learning they had been boned, would often die within weeks, not from poison or violence, but from pure terror. Medical studies of agutmentic cases from the 1800s showed that victims exhibited symptoms identical to extreme shock, rapid heart rate, loss of appetite, and eventual organ failure. The mortality rate was over. Even more disturbing, the ritual was so respected that entire tribes would shun the victim, treating them as already dead. The psychological isolation was so complete that people literally died from believing they were cursed. Perhaps the most disturbing ritual of all was practiced by the Fore people of Papua New Guinea until the 1960s. When a family member died, the entire extended family would gather not for a funeral, but for a feast. They would systematically consume every part of the deceased: brain, organs, muscle, even bones ground into powder. This wasn't done out of hunger or cruelty, but as the ultimate sign of love and respect. The women and children ate the brain and nervous system, while men consumed the muscle. They believed this allowed the deceased to literally become part of their living relatives. But this practice led to a horrifying consequence: the spread of Kuru disease, a fatal brain disorder caused by prions. Between 1950 and 1960, over 2,700 people died from this disease, with some villages losing 90% of their population. The Fore people were unknowingly eating their way to extinction. What makes these rituals even more unsettling is that many of them persisted well into the modern era. The last recorded skull cup ceremony in Tibet occurred in many. Aboriginal bone pointing was still practiced in remote areas. Over Australia and in some isolated patches of Papua New Guinea, modified versions of endocannibalism continued until the early 2000s. These aren't ancient history, they're practices that existed within living memory. These rituals reveal a fundamental truth about human nature that we've almost completely forgotten. Our ancestors didn't just survive in harsh environments, they created meaning through practices that would horrify us today. They found the sacred in the brutal, the spiritual in the shocking, and the profound in the disturbing. But here's the most unsettling realization: these weren't the actions of primitive people. These were sophisticated cultures with complex belief systems, advanced technologies, and rich artistic traditions. The same human brains that created these rituals are the ones we carry today. The capacity for both beautiful creation and disturbing destruction exists in every one of us. In our sanitized modern world, we've lost touch with the raw, primal aspects of human nature that these rituals expressed. We've gained safety and comfort, but perhaps we've also lost something essential about what it means to be human. The question isn't whether these practices were right or wrong, it's whether we can understand our own species without acknowledging the darkness that once defined us.